the music industry and write about it. We just propose a good solution.
Goldie, from your perspective?
Yeah, from my perspective, I would just say to make sure that you're writing on something that you're genuinely interested in. That way the research is fun research, and our Henry's talking about things he likes to go home and read. If you're writing a paper on something that you genuinely like, chances are you know something about that topic anyway. For example, my paper was on international distribution issues that arise when co-owned works are distributed in different territories that have conflicting copyright laws. So that was interesting to me. I liked copyright law. I'd taken some intellectual property classes. I'd taken some copyright classes and some advanced copyright classes. So when it came time for me to write my paper, I thought, well, what am I genuinely interested in, and how can I connect this to music? And I came up with that topic. So I would just say, yeah, if you can think of something that you really like, it varies. I think my year, the winner may have written on finance. Like, the topics are so varied. You just need to take one area that you like and connect it to music and write the paper, and then I think that'll make the paper more compelling. I would also suggest that you look at past winners and past finalist papers. They're all online. My paper, most of them are published. I believe all of them get published in a journal. For example, my papers were published in the Vanderbilt Law Journal. So you can look them up. You can easily find these papers, and you can see the way they're structured. You can see the way they're tackling an issue and the way they're solving an issue or presenting a solution to the problem. And then that way you get an idea of what the graders are looking for.
Let's talk a little bit about the paper writing process, in that I've heard it said from graders in particular, as we get feedback on the submissions, that the best papers in some way, yes, they identify a problem, propose a solution, but they tell a story. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, go ahead.
I don't know that my paper was a story. I don't know that my paper was the story, so I'm probably not. Go ahead, Henry. Maybe you've seen more of these papers than I have.
Yeah, tell a story. I mean, the papers that resonate with me are papers that read fluently, read smoothly.
Maybe that's what I mean. That that they're
not
thought process is organized.
They're relatable. Like you can see the situation opposed to it just being conceptual. That's maybe true. That's true.
It's IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion, right? If you follow that format, but you write it in a compelling fashion, it certainly gets my attention.
Right. Goldie, just talk a little bit about what actually the opportunity to come to the luncheon. What did that mean for you?
This is the fun part. This was so exciting because I wrote this paper and I didn't know how amazing the presentation and the lunch would be. I knew I would get to present my paper, but I was like, oh, I want this scholarship, and I wanted the opportunity to have my paper published. And I wanted to come to the Grammys. It was fun. I wanted to come to LA. I was coming from Houston. I wanted to come.
That's a good point to make, by the way. You also do get to come to the Grammys.
I wanted to go to the Grammys and get the scholarship. But the highlight of the winnings was actual presenting the paper at this luncheon. They kind of surprised us. Lauren and Mari surprised me anyway. I didn't know. So you're a finalist and you show up to LA and you are put on a stage similar to this with 4 other people, and you are talking about your paper. There are about 500 entertainment attorneys and executives in the audience, and they're all there to hear about your paper. They have your papers in front of them. They've looked through your papers. They're interested in your papers, and they read your papers. And they read your papers because after you present, you give your talk about your paper, and the moderator asks you questions. You have that interaction. After the luncheon, they come up to you and they want to ask you more questions about your paper and just kind of dialogue you. It's not pressuring. It's a lot of fun because you've spent time researching this issue. It's something that you know about and you want to talk about it. So you have this opportunity to sit before 500 entertainment executives. When do you have that opportunity? Have you had that opportunity? Never. You've been practicing for a while, Henry, to talk about a substantive music law issue before 500 people. You're having a conversation with them and they're interested. For me, when I was in law school, which was very different from college, talking to the law firms and the corporations, when I was in college, the firms and the companies were coming to me. They wanted to know me. Please submit your resume. We want you to intern with us this summer. It was the opposite for me when I was in law school. I felt like I was going after the firm, like, hey, here's my resume, please consider me. I'm smart, I can write, but it's so competitive that you just don't get the same amount of attention. But what ELI does is you get that attention. They're there to see you. They're there to hear your paper. And they're looking at your paper, and it's a good paper. If you're a winner, it's a good paper because you've had so many eyes, so many experienced attorneys looking at it. They're there to see you. So you present that paper. After the talk, attorneys, executives are coming up, and they're wanting your information, and you're giving them your information. And for me, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to ELI, I want to get a job. I was just thinking, oh, I want the scholarship. I want to go to the Grammys. This is fun. I want my paper to be published. This will be great on my resume. And I met so many people. So many people followed up with me, and I followed up with them. More importantly, I followed up with them, but they corresponded back with me. And one of the persons in the audience is my current employer. And I was like, oh, I'll be in LA. I want to talk with you. And I'm thinking, hey, this is I can meet some of their friends who are doing things that I want to do with my legal career. And I ended up getting a job there. And they brought me out to LA, and I've been working there, for several years now. So, this is something that has been life-changing for me. I love ELI. Whenever they call and ask me to participate in these talks, I love to do it because I am a testament of what ELI can do for you. I studied science and engineering, and I was being pushed into patent law, and I didn't like patent law, but I was very well headed that way, and I got the opportunity to present this paper, and now I'm doing something that I absolutely love to do. So, I cannot encourage you enough. I don't know what else to say other than you should participate. And it's easy, and it's not hard. I wrote my paper over winter break. If you write on something that you're interested in, you kind of know about it, and it's not long. I'm one of those students who needed to trim my paper. It was too long, and I was like, how do I get all these words? I wrote the paper over winter break, and I had all of these words because I was talking about something that I genuinely liked. So it's not a hard paper to write, and the benefits are so great that if you win this, it's amazing. And people remember me from that competition. People come up to me oh, yeah, I remember you were one of the finalists, and you wrote on. I'm like, wow, thank you. It's great.
And then there's the big hang. Right?
Well, that's really the point.
Then you get to peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Once the luncheon is over.
Right.
And there's usually a crowd of us who will remain nameless who take a crowd of finalists, off-site for libations after the competition. And that's when the anointment begins and the networking opportunities begin.
All perfectly above board in legal.
All
by the way.
perfectly above board.
Just want to make that point. Goldie, all I can say is that once again the music industry has corrupted a future patent lawyer. But let's talk just for a minute about. I know Henry, you talked about obviously the competition for the position that was available in your firm. But I wanted to get the perspective from both of you about just the music industry landscape. Clearly we could go on ad nauseum about the changes in the industry and the challenges and physical sales disappearing and all of those sorts of things. Nonetheless, it would strike me that given the challenges, there are opportunities for not only smart business people to come into the industry and change it for the better, but also the need for as the workplace and as the business constantly evolves, for smart legal minds to be there to kind of make the rules as people go along. Can you talk a bit about kind of the opportunities that you see in the legal landscape?
I think that I haven't been practicing very long. I've been 3 years, so I kind of came in when there were a lot of changes taking place. So I haven't seen a lot of the changes, but I'm very well aware of them. But music is being used in so many places now. I think that music is more prevalent now than it was definitely when I was growing up. You see music everywhere. There's so many ways to get your music out, so many ways to make music that there's more of it. And, I think, yes, things have changed. You know, the record companies are not as large as they once were. The budgets are not what they once were. But I think it's cyclical, so it comes back. It's just a matter of, you know, figuring out what do we do? How do we get back ahead? You know, how do we move with the new developments? How do we move with the digital developments? How do we move with, you know, provisions in the Copyright Act that are now impacting our compositions? Like, what do we do? And you're absolutely right. That's when, you know, I think that's one of the things that makes the ELI competition so interesting for the attorneys that are in the audience. You know, we practice and we get caught up in our day-to-day. This is what I deal with. And so a lot of times we don't have the time, or we don't take the time to really explore further, because we're caught up in our day-to-day and handling this and handling that. But with the fresh papers, you guys are presenting ideas. You're presenting, you know, novel concepts, novel solutions. And those solutions, you can bring them to the workplace.
You know, the music industry doesn't have a problem. The recording industry has a problem, right? That's how I see it. And the recording industry has a problem because nobody can figure out how to monetize music right now in an effective way. And the recent statistics are very concerning, to say the least. Not only, to no one's surprise, does physical sales of recordings continue to fall off a cliff, but last quarter, digital revenues started to decline. And that's got executives jumping out of the 10th-story windows of the record companies. Almost literally, because nobody saw that coming. And we don't know if it's just a one-time, one-quarter blip on the radar screen or whether it's a trend. You know, is this an indication that the people who don't illegally file trade but rather have purchased downloads did the same thing that I did and people before me, and that was, you know, we replaced our vinyl records with CDs, and now we're done replacing our CDs with downloads, and so the catalog sales are going to start to fall off the cliff, or is this an indication of a broader trend that's going to, you know, start? Another possible idea for, you know, many papers is identify a problem. How do people get paid for the distribution of the sound recordings? You know, going forward, how do you monetize the industry? Is that, you know? Well, so like I said earlier, you know, there's multitude more opportunities for people to get in. I grew up, as all of us, I'm the product of my experiences, right? So I see the industry through a certain set of eyes. And young attorneys and law students see the universe through a different set of eyes than I do. And I don't think that my generation of attorneys is necessarily going to be the ones that figure this out. I think the opportunities have never been so great. You know, a Sean Fanning can sit in a college dorm room and change an industry with a mouse click. Right? That's where the change is going to come from. And how the law evolves and how contracts evolve and how financing is done and how contracts are rewritten is going to be determined, I'm afraid, not by me as much as I love the industry, but by fresh young eyeballs that don't have my experiences and the experience of the executives at my level of the occupation are engaged in, come up with solutions for these problems.
So would it be